In 2019, a video began spreading online. An old man sits alone in a dark room, hands trembling, and confesses to a camera. He says he worked for the CIA. He says he spent his career doing something he can no longer live with. The video passed 10 million views. And what he describes sounds impossible. That between 1959 and 2001, the United States government killed every bird in America, 12 billion of them, and replaced each one with something else, something that watches. This is the story of that claim, the million people who say they believe it, and the evidence they point to. The story believers tell begins in 1956. At the height of the Cold War, America is terrified of Soviet spies, and the CIA wants eyes everywhere. On April 15, 1956, according to the movement's own historical documents, CIA Director Allen Dulles walked into the White House with a proposal for a sky-based surveillance program. The lore even records a strangely petty motive. Agency directors were tired of birds fouling the windshields of their cars. By May, the plan had taken shape. Do not build new cameras and hide them. Replace the things that already fill the sky. On May 6, 1957, the story goes, Dulles ordered 120 bombers from Boeing. The plan had a budget, a fleet, and a code name. June 2, 1959, Operation Water the Country begins. According to the theory, B-52 bombers took off carrying 450-gallon tanks filled with a poison designed to do two things: spread from bird to bird like a virus and dissolve the bodies within 24 hours so that no one would ever find billions of carcasses. It was sprayed from 8,000 feet, high enough that nobody on the ground would notice a thing. Believers say the results came fast. In the first 6 years, 15% of the bird population of the United States was gone. The spraying would continue, in one form or another, for 4 decades. Then, in October 1963, the operation hit a problem. The president found out. On October 3rd, according to the movement's account, John F. Kennedy learned about the program through a tapped phone line. He demanded to see it with his own eyes. So on October 25th, in a private meeting, the CIA showed him a prototype, the Turkey X-500, a robotic bird of prey built to hunt down eagles and falcons, birds too large and too smart to poison. Kennedy was horrified. He ordered the entire program shut down. The movement's official history records what happened next in a single line. Less than a month later, he was dead, and every president since, believers claim, has quietly signed the papers to keep the program alive. Stop and think about the scale for a second. To replace 12 billion birds, you would need the largest manufacturing operation in human history. And the theory has an answer for that too. 22 underground bunkers, disguised as fallout shelters, scattered across the country. By 1980, believers say, they were producing 100,000 robot birds every single day. A facility near Colorado Springs built nothing but hummingbirds. A prototype lab was hidden inside Area 51. And the theory goes further. It claims the war in Vietnam was fought partly over bauxite, the ore that becomes aluminum, the metal the drone frames are made of. According to the lore, even the wars were part of the supply chain. So how would you spot one? Believers say the evidence has been hiding in plain sight your whole life, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Why do birds sit on power lines? They are charging. Why do they gather on wires at dusk, all facing the same way? Shift change. Why do their droppings always seem to find your car? Believers say it is a tracking liquid, marking vehicles for satellites. What is a dead pigeon on a sidewalk? A unit whose battery failed before the collection crews arrived. And then there is the question the whole movement is built on. Have you, in your entire life, ever seen a baby pigeon? The deeper you go into the movement's documents, the more detailed the machine becomes. The drones, they claim, obey rules. American bird drones do not cross into Canada or Mexico. The borders of the surveillance grid are programmed in. The only exception, believers say, is a drone assigned to follow an American tourist abroad. The movement even publishes an estimate of the sky itself. 95% of everything flying over the United States is government hardware. The remaining 5% are biological strays that wander across the border and are, in their words, dealt with. It is a complete self-sealing system. Every bird you will ever see fits somewhere inside it, and that is exactly what makes it work as a story. There is no observation it cannot absorb. The movement also claims this fight is older than the internet. Its archives describe a resistance going back to 1973, when a San Francisco activist named Clark Griffin was approached by an anonymous government insider known only as the Master. Griffin toured campuses, he printed flyers, and in 1987, the story goes, the resistance pooled its money and bought a television ad during the Super Bowl. It never aired, confiscated, they say, hours before broadcast. That same year, an FBI raid emptied their offices. Then, on May 6, 1991, at a rally on Market Street, Clark Griffin vanished. He walked into the crowd and never walked out. The movement went dark for 26 years. The silence broke in January 2017 in Memphis, Tennessee. An 18-year-old college student named Peter McIndoe stood at a protest, tore a poster off a wall, and wrote 3 words on the back: "Birds are not real." A video of him went viral within days. And instead of laughing it off, he committed. A van appeared, painted with the movement's claims. Billboards went up, first in Memphis in July 2019, then Los Angeles. Rallies followed. Hundreds gathered in Springfield, Missouri on June 23, 2021, and in 2018. Something happened that believers still bring up constantly. News broke that China had built actual bird-shaped surveillance drones and was flying them over its own citizens. The technology was real. It existed. So believers asked, what exactly has been flying over America since 1959? What began as one sign became infrastructure. Followers organized themselves into what they called the Bird Brigade. Between 2018 and 2021, McIndoe and his co-leader Connor Gatos crossed the country in a $2,000 van painted with the movement's claims. From pigeon diagrams to power line charging schematics, they held rallies on campuses and town squares. They sold hats, shirts, and flags, reportedly several $1,000s a month. And by their own account, every dollar went back into what they call the Truth Movement. Chapters appeared in dozens of cities. Flyers appeared on poles. And every new member was handed the same simple mission: wake up one more person. Ask them one question. When did you last see a baby pigeon? By late 2021, the movement was impossible to ignore. 825,000 followers on TikTok, hundreds of thousands more on Reddit and Instagram, over 1 million people calling themselves bird truthers. In November 2021, they gathered outside Twitter headquarters in San Francisco and demanded the company take down its own bird logo. Then, on December 9, 2021, the New York Times put the movement on its front page with a confession of a different kind. Peter McIndoe, the paper reported, admitted the whole thing was invented. A parody, he said. A mirror held up to conspiracy culture. Case closed. Except the believers had an answer ready. Of course he said that, they wrote. That is exactly what they would make him say. After the reveal, the strangest chapter began. Because the movement did not shrink, it got louder. In January 2022, McIndoe appeared on a live Chicago morning show and vomited on air, later calling the segment a hit job. In 2023, he gave a TED Talk about belief itself. In 2024, he and Gatos published a book, presented completely straight, about what they call the largest surveillance campaign in United States history. There were reports of movie deals. Mainstream anchors read the lore aloud on national television with a smile that never quite settled. The line between the joke, the warning, and the belief had stopped being visible. Maybe that was the point. Maybe it always was. And then there is the ending nobody expected. Visit the movement's official website today, and you will find a new message. It says, Peter has been missing for years. It says the organization is run by a single remaining member, an intern named Sean. It says, van number 2 sits impounded in San Bernardino, California. Is it the next chapter of the performance? A quiet way to retire the character? Or, as the true believers insist, did the man who got too close to the truth finally get collected, like a dead pigeon lifted off a sidewalk? The website does not answer. The confession video plays on, and the birds outside your window sit exactly where they sat yesterday. And that is where the story sits today. The confession video is still online. The billboards are still remembered. The subreddit still fills every single day with photos of birds sitting on power lines, captioned with battery percentages. Some of the people posting are joking. Some of them, by every indication, are not. 60 Minutes put the number of self-described believers above 1 million. And maybe that is the strangest part of this whole story. It does not matter who started it or why. A story, told well enough, keeps itself alive. So the next time you are outside, look at the wires, count the birds, notice how still they sit, notice how they never seem to blink, and ask yourself the question, when exactly was the last time you saw a baby pigeon?